Yeah, protest in Midtown Manhattan. You're looking at 2nd Avenue right now. Of course, thousands of people have been staging demonstrations for days now, and what started as a fight for justice for George Floyd turned into demands for change.
And as we've been mentioning time and time again, that most of these protests have been peaceful, even the one you're seeing right there, peaceful. But we just learned that even the protests you saw there have been folks who have splintered off from the peaceful protests and caused some issues. Joining us live right now via Skype is NYPD Chief of Department Terrence Monahan. We appreciate you taking time out to speak with us.
Sure thing, Corey. Tyron, how are you?
Yeah, well. So what happened? What's going on with these people that were breaking off?
All right, so we had a very peaceful demonstration at Times Square, a lot of speeches. They started marching on 42nd Street to Lexington Avenue. Around 34th Street, a group of around 75 broke off. They knocked the police officer off a scooter. They threw a bottle at one of our inspectors, started throwing cones in the street, spitting in a couple of cops' faces. We had a bit of a confrontation, and we ended up taking 12 arrests. Approximately 12 arrests at 29th Street between 5th and 6th. But this is what we've seen. Peaceful protesters embedded with those who are looking just to cause mayhem and destruction in our city and attack police officers.
Let's talk about that, because we've heard a lot about these agitators in the crowds that you all have talked about, being kind of the drivers of the destruction. How many of these people, are they from out of town? What do we know about them right now?
From what we're seeing when we process, we're seeing a lot from out of town, a lot of California, upstate, not typical New Yorkers, but there still are a lot of New Yorkers who are joined in with them. So as we talk about a small group, they probably number in 1,000 to 2,000 that are currently in this city, joining in with the many thousands who are justly protesting.
You know, as you speak with us, we're seeing some of the video here, and it is tough to watch. You to see these folks smashing and grabbing and doing all kinds of business. You know, and you mentioned it. Here, the sun is shining. It's after 5 o'clock. You mentioned this group that broke off as in the daylight. Now there's a curfew at 11 p.m. Do you think that's going to change what you see out there? And what are you going to do if you guys see any New Yorkers out at 11:30 or at 11:05? I mean, how are you going to act? How are you going to respond?
Listen, this is focused on those that are looking to cause damage. Peaceful protesters will understand the curfew. They will separate themselves and no longer form camouflage for those that want to cause destruction. It'll make it a lot easier for us to identify and stop them and get them off the street. So we don't want a repeat of what we saw last night in this city.
Well, and let's talk about it. There has been a real range of videos that we've all seen now about how officers have responded, kneeling with protesters in Queens yesterday. We saw that. But in contrast to that, shocking video of NYPD vehicles driving into protesters over the weekend. Your opinion on how officers are handling things?
I think the men and women of the NYPD are doing an outstanding job under the most treacherous conditions they've ever had to deal with. I've been hit with bottles. I've been hit with rocks. I've had cinder blocks fall on my feet over the course of days, and watch my officers take this until they're directed into a crowd to make arrests and target those that are causing this violence. As it goes to that car, let's not forget, we had a Molotov cocktail thrown at one of our cars. We had a commanding officer pinned in his car by the crowd. His radio transmission in dire calls for help was, "This may be my last transmission I ever make." That's the fear that we have when you get lost in a crowd of hundreds looking to cause damage to you. So though we have to investigate why they actually pulled into that crowd, take a look at what was getting thrown at them and all this going through those cops' heads. There are things that I've seen in some of those videos that are unacceptable, and we will deal with that. But the vast majority of interactions, our cops have had the highest amount of professionalism, training, discipline to hold back and make arrests only when necessary.
You know, Chief, you're talking about the restraint of your force and the officers there. I'm curious what your take is, what we've heard from President Trump, reportedly pushing for governors to, quote, dominate and take back the streets from protesters. Do you think that approach, that more strong-handed approach, would work in New York City? And do you think that perhaps officers are being too restrained? I'm curious your thoughts.
NYPD is out here doing what we need to do. Regardless of what anyone says, our mission is to keep the citizens of this city safe. It would be great if every elected official stood up and strongly denounced the criminals that are out here looking to attack police officers, loot stores, and ruin what we have done over the last years to create a bond between our cops and the community. We would hope we'd have more and more electeds stand by us as we do this. We will investigate any incident that doesn't look right on video, but overwhelmingly, we are being attacked by individuals, and it's important that that gets out there and our electeds come out and see it. Jumaane Williams, I give him credit. He stood with me on the line, attempting to stop protesters from doing things, and he was unable to, and they trashed 2 radio cars right in front of him. So it's important that they see the restraint that our cops are doing.
Chief, thank you so much. I know you're right in the middle of things, right in the middle of a bunch of arrests that were just made as a result of that group that broke off. So we'll let you get back to what you're doing. Appreciate you talking with us and hope we can reach out to you at any point during this as we try to get through a peaceful night ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.